December 6, 1991. 4 girls went to work and never came home. They were teenagers, friends, sisters, employees closing a yogurt shop in a quiet neighborhood of Austin, Texas. What happened inside that store would become one of the most haunting, unsolved crimes in American history. For more than 30 years, the evidence stayed silent, until 2025. The store was I Can't Believe It's Yogurt, located in Northwest Austin, a suburban strip mall near schools, homes, and churches. It was a Friday night. The shop closed at 11 p.m. Inside were 4 employees: Jennifer Harbison, 17, Eliza Thomas, 17, Amy Ayers, 13, Sarah Harbison, 15, 2 sisters, 2 friends. Witnesses later reported seeing customers in the store earlier that evening. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening, no warning. On December 7, 1991, a passing motorist reported smoke coming from an Austin yogurt shop. Firefighters arrived expecting a small commercial fire. They forced entry and were met with thick, acrid smoke and intense heat. But as their flashlights cut through the haze, they realized this was no ordinary fire. In the back of the shop, they made a discovery that would become one of the most infamous crime scenes in the city's history. All 4 girls inside had been murdered. The victims were bound, gagged, and shot. The store was then deliberately set on fire to destroy evidence, creating a complex puzzle that would challenge law enforcement for decades. The Austin Police Department launched one of the largest investigations in the city's history. Hundreds of tips poured in. Detectives believed there were multiple attackers. Ballistics suggested the same weapon was used on all 4 victims. But in 1991, forensic science had limits. DNA testing existed, but it required clean, intact samples. The fire had destroyed most of them. What remained was logged, catalogued, and shelved. Evidence missing its voice. After years of frustrating dead ends, the investigation appeared to make a dramatic breakthrough. In the late 1990s, a series of arrests brought a renewed, albeit temporary, sense of hope to a city desperate for answers. 4 young men were taken into custody and charged with capital murder. The arrests were a shock to the community. 2 of the accused were just teenagers themselves at the time of the crime, a detail that would later become a critical point of contention. With little to no physical evidence linking them to the scene, the prosecution's case was built almost entirely on a different kind of evidence, their own words. The case relied heavily on confessions obtained during hours of intense police interrogation. These statements, however, were plagued with problems from the start. When scrutinized, they were found to be riddled with inconsistencies, not only between the different suspects' accounts, but also with the established facts of the crime scene itself. Details provided in the confessions failed to match crucial evidence, and the narratives shifted under questioning. Defense attorneys argued that the statements were not voluntary, but the product of psychological pressure and coercive interrogation tactics, particularly given the age and vulnerability of some of the accused. Despite these red flags, 2 of the men were convicted. But the doubts never went away. Years of legal challenges followed, culminating in a landmark decision. In 2009, the convictions were overturned by an appellate court, citing the unreliability of the confessions and new DNA evidence that pointed away from the accused. The legal battle continued for another decade until, by 2019, all charges against all 4 men were formally dismissed. The collapse of the case meant that after nearly 30 years, no one was held responsible. The justice that seemed within reach had evaporated, and the investigation returned to where it began, a cold case, officially unsolved. Despite the fire, some biological material survived. Minute traces, too small, too mixed, too degraded for traditional DNA profiling. For decades, those samples were considered unusable. They sat in evidence storage, preserved but silent, until forensic science changed. By 2025, forensic science had undergone a revolution. Cold case units re-examined evidence from the Austin yogurt shop murders using a powerful technique, Y-STR DNA testing. Unlike standard analysis, Y-STR focuses exclusively on the male Y chromosome, acting as a genetic filter to isolate a male profile from the mixed and degraded evidence. The test doesn't identify an individual, but a paternal lineage, matching the perpetrator and his male relatives. From the ashes, new profiles emerged. They weren't names, but genetic signposts pointing to specific family trees, breathing new life into a case many feared had gone cold forever. In 1991, evidence existed, but science couldn't hear it. In 2025, it finally could. Not touch DNA, not guesswork, but a 27-marker Y-STR profile, male-specific DNA that had waited decades for the right technology. In August 2025, the South Carolina State Lab delivered the result: 27 markers, 27 matches, one man, Robert Eugene Brashers. The same man was already suspected in a 1990 murder in South Carolina. The fire had not erased him. It had only delayed him. Then came the sound no one expected, a match, metallic and final. In July 2025, detectives re-examined a forgotten detail, a .380 shell casing hidden in a floor drain beneath the yogurt shop. Using modern ballistic software unavailable in the 1990s, they ran it again. The casing matched a firearm profile from an unsolved 1998 murder in Kentucky. Another victim, another state, the same killer. The timeline tightened. Just 48 hours after the 1991 murders, Brashers was stopped by U.S. Border Patrol. In his possession, a .380 pistol. At the time, it meant nothing. In 2025, it meant everything. That weapon, now confirmed, was the same gun Brashers used to take his own life in 1999. One gun, multiple crimes, a single, unbroken line of violence. But the yogurt shop murders carry another shadow. For decades, the case was synonymous with injustice. 4 men, Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, Maurice Pierce Forrest Wellborn, convicted not by evidence, but by coerced confessions, held while the real killer remained free. Their names became footnotes in a story that devoured lives indiscriminately, until now. In December 2025, the Travis County District Attorney's Office formally moved to begin the exoneration process, acknowledging what the evidence had always said: they were innocent. The yogurt shop murders were never just a crime. They were a test of science, of patience, of whether truth can outlive fire, fear, and failure. In 2025, it did, not with a chase, not with a confession, but with data precise enough to speak when humans could not. Justice arrived late, but it arrived intact. And for the first time since 1991, the silence finally has an answer.